Okay, today we're going to can some Hungarian hot wax peppers. It's an old family process. I learned to do when I was a child, probably 10 years old or so, with my Italian uncles that come over from Italy. So I've been doing this for 50 some years, and so I want to share the process with you today. So we start out with basically Hungarian hot peppers that I've already washed, and now we're going to cut the tops off to prepare for machine processing. I'm going to cut them in a food processor with an 8mm blade, and that's really a matter of what you prefer. And then we are going to can them into pint canning jars. So, as you can see, it's not that difficult. You cut the tops off. I separate them into a pan for the next process. The peppers are in various colors. Doesn't mean really anything that I know of. I mean, a lot of times you'll get the peppers and they'll all be the green color. But I found the longer you leave them on the vine or the bush, then they seem to color up a little bit better. Some people say it has to do with how hot they are, and I think that's not true. But anyway, so we're about finished with this process. So now for the next process, we are going to assemble the food processor with the 8mm blade, the top, and we're going to feed through the center, and this will cut the all the peppers. And then for the next process, of course, is to remove the seeds. So let's do it. Now, I will say, if you notice, if you could let these things vibrate through there like that, but when you do that, it's really just shaves the peppers instead of cutting them the thickness of the blade. So when you push them through quickly, it will maintain thickness for the most part, and it makes it a lot better. We'll do this until the processor fills up, and they'll empty it. Now we have a full container in the processor, so we're going to remove the lid, slide the blade out carefully, and now we're going to dump them into the sink that I have prepared with, I sanitized the sink, and I filled it with water, and I'm going to continue to fill it now. So we're going to fill this sink with the peppers, and this process is going to help us to remove probably 90% of the seeds. So we're going to take them out of there and rinse them, and the seeds will sort of float and go through, and we'll be able to remove most of the seeds. Okay, so for preparation of the next process, we are going to remove the seeds, put the cut peppers in the pan, and then I'm going to put the pan like this at an angle over the sink. And so I'm going to poke some holes in the bottom of the pan, maybe 3 or 4 holes in the bottom of the aluminum foil pan. I've actually used one pan for several years. I just wash it out and keep using it. But what the process will be is we will take the peppers from the sink, rinse the seeds away, put them in this pan and salt them, and that's going to cause the peppers to bleed the water out. And we want to take the water out because if you don't leave them sit for an hour or so with the salt on it, the water will accumulate in the jar, and it just doesn't make for a good product. So So that's very simple. Aluminum foil pan, poke some holes in it, and we're good to go. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to scoop some peppers out of the sink. We're going to rinse them, shake them a little bit, and I'm using, I guess it would be called a, they make me cough. I guess it would be called a wok strainer. So you can see, once we get them out, there's hardly any seeds in them at all. Okay, so now we're going to salt the peppers, and you can see I'm putting a substantial amount of salt on the peppers, and that's going to cause them to release the juices, and the juices are going to flow down the pan and come out the holes that we put in earlier. I put the salt on in layers. I salted very heavily because we aren't going to salt them at all once we put them into the jars for the final process. Remember, the pile of peppers was up that high. That's how much moisture has left the peppers. So now, there's a couple ways to finish the process. This seems to be the easiest and it works well. So I like to season my peppers with a little bit of oregano. It's just dry leaf oregano. Not a lot, I just sort of sprinkle it over top. Okay, and then parsley. Maybe a little bit more parsley. Yeah. There we go. Black pepper, because remember we have plenty of salt. So we're going to put black pepper. And I know you want to know how much. So if you want to really know how much and you want to do it precisely, you put 1/4 of a teaspoon of each. And this is garlic powder. You put 1/4 of a teaspoon of each in each pint jar, and that will be the correct amount. I use some garlic powder. I just started doing that. I used to put fresh garlic in the pepper in the jars, but I don't know why. I didn't investigate enough, but the garlic will sometimes turn green in the jars. So once I season them, then I'm going to take my tongs and sort of blend the seasonings through, like this. And now we're ready, after we do this, we're ready to put the jars or the peppers in the jars. So we'll mix it up very nicely. And you can tell they lost a lot of, they lost some crispiness because they lost the water. But they seem really good, they smell good, so we're ready to start the next process. So now we're getting down to the end of the process, and what we're going to do is we're going to put the peppers in the jar, and what I'm doing is against every rule of canning, using a metal pair of tongs to stuff the jars, but I've done it for years. Never had any problems, and it just seems to work well. So we want to put them in the jars and pack them fairly good, like so, and right about up to the collar, and that'll give you the proper spacing that you need. So there we go, and we just keep going through the process. Okay, so now I have the peppers in the jars, And in my little pitcher, I have apple cider vinegar. So into each jar, I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. You can put more, but you can't put less. You need the pH low enough to prevent any food-borne illnesses like botulism or something like that. You need to keep the pH low enough. So we're just going to put 2 tablespoons in each jar. Now, 2 tablespoons I found is about equal to a half of shot glass. So I found it much easier to do that than to sit there and measure out the tablespoons. I keep them in rows because you don't want to lose track and miss one. Then after we're done with the vinegar, we're going to fill the jars with our oil. Now, you can see on the range I have 3 pots. One with oil, one with just plain hot water, and in the one with the plain water I have my 1-piece lids. I prefer to use the 1-piece lids because they look better, they look more professional, and they really are not a lot more money. I get them from Fillmore Container in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Also get the jars there too. So we're going to take the hot oil and we're going to now put it in each jar. And you sometimes have to go back, and you don't want to, if the oil is sizzling when it goes in the jar, it's too hot. So if you notice I have a pan that works extremely well. It has a pour spout on it, and so it's very easy to pour into the jars. So the next step is to put the lids on the jars. Okay, so I have my pan of heated sanitized lids, and we're going to put them on the jars, and we're just going to snug them onto the jars. We're not going to tighten them. They have to allow for expansion. Kind of hot in the fingers. So you just sort of snug them. This little magnetic retrieval device to retrieve the lids from the hot water works extremely well. And I think our canner, we're going to put these in a water bath canner for 18 minutes. After the water starts boiling, we leave them in for 18 minutes. And I think it will hold 8 or 9 jars. I don't quite remember, but we're going to find out here in a minute. So, after we have the lids on, I'm just putting the lids on that many for now, so we don't waste time. We're going to take and put them in the water bath canner. So we're going to immerse the whole jar in the water, lid, so the water covers the lid. And there we go, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then we're going to pick up the handles and lower them into the water. like we need a little bit more water. So now the jars have come out of the canner after 18 minutes, and you can adjust that time if you like. If you want your peppers a little bit softer, leave them in 20 minutes or 22 minutes. You can do what you want to get the texture of the peppers that you want. So that's the entire process, and good luck. Now, the finished product with my label.